Hello and good evening. It's August 5th, 2025, and we're continuing our discussion collection in our Outside the Class series. This series from the Bible Project covers the entire TaNaK, also known as that Hebrew Bible, right? The Old Testament. Those source videos are available for your review, all of them on TheDustyFeet.com in the Outside the Class section. Because the intent of Outside the Class is for you to listen to the in-class lecture first, because we're just going to try to keep these to about 15 minutes. I want to make them easy to catch up on. So we're on a quest, scroll by scroll, book by book, a journey through this collection, just maybe with a fun and different twist. Our hope with the Dusty Feed is to foster discussion and help build and support communities. If you are not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. TheDustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Facebook, @TheDustyFeet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. And 3. We have a Discord channel. The invite link is there below. Be vocal, be written, be loving. And 4, and as always, you are welcome to send an email to bob@TheDustyFeet.com. These places, they will be moderated, and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. And of course, before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, please click that subscribe button. The reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, then please just click that like button, because it is how YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. Because in this series, we're going to cover the entire TaNaK, or the Old Testament, in the original order of the Hebrew Scriptures. We just need to remember that the videos we're going to discuss are just the tip of an iceberg. They're part of a learning series, again, that I highly recommend, and all of them can be found on the Bible Project website. Because we're going to ask many questions about all kinds of things, and the answers, we'll see. So Samuel, first scroll, this is part 16. So remember last week we had people that were making a declaration for Saul. Remember, as we have no account of Saul making this particular point, because I'll give you all of this if you can do this, i.e. this being defeat Goliath. The people that are speaking for Saul already have something to ponder. We just started. But as we said, now enter stage right, David's big brother, which made me chuckle a little bit, because David's big brother steps into the picture wearing his big brother sandals and does nothing more than act like a big brother. At least in my experience with big brothers that I've met, and as a big brother, this thought does come to mind. So now Eliab, the oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger burned against David, and he said, "Why do you come down? And with whom have you left the few sheep in the wilderness? I know your insolence and the wickedness of your heart, for you've come down just to see the battle." But David said, "What have I done now? What, was it not just a question?" You can almost hear the attitudes between the younger and the older brother, right? The youngest brother, the oldest brother. Remember, there are 8 kids here, so there's more than a few years difference. The oldest brother's going, "I've got a few more years than you in this particular deal." So what do you have in this conversation? Don't you have sheep to focus on? David, although being the youngest brother, he's now of an age where his big brother, Eliab, he needs to see David in a different light. Not just who he is, not seeing him as him being a bit more grown up now, but also maybe needing to see him for who he is and who he could be. So David breaks off the conversation. He goes around talking to other groups of men, offering the same thing he just said to them. And this word of David talking, it's discussing this. It spread through the camp and it trickled back to Saul. So Saul says, David, come here. You could almost see the little finger wagging as he begs David to come talk to him, right? And in this conversation, we need to remember, the Lord has anointed David, right? The Spirit of the Lord was great upon him. He had this expectation, maybe at a minimum, a thought, maybe he's thinking this shouldn't be going this way because this isn't God's way. So when David gets with Saul, he gets to share his personal battle story, right? That sounds interesting because it sounds at times, if you pause, to me anyways, there was an echo. I heard it. You might not have heard it. That's fair, but it was something that I heard. I heard Samson. I heard interactions with animals. And it didn't end so well for the animals there. Yeah? But also, yes, David's not as seasoned in the warfare of his brothers, including his oldest brothers. It may be true. Still, especially Saul, to be fair, he is seasoned in human battle. David, even though he was labeled with valor, I think it's something more to think about, mainly because sometimes we forget that this still is a backward story. In other words, this is being told for the people in his future, looking back as a storyteller tells a story for us, looking back on the story. I love the story that David shares. This starts at verse 32, and David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail on the account of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. But then Saul said to David, you're not able to fight against this Philistine, to fight him with him, for you are but a youth, when he's been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep, when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. And I went out after him, and I attacked him, and I rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him, and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. So Saul said to David, go, may the Lord be with you. I think I need to pause a minute, clarify some things, or at least I want to make sure we put them in context, because we're discussing this story and we're talking about these individuals at that time. However, to be fair to Saul, what Saul brings up is a valid point, especially if I'm sitting on the sidelines. I'm listening to Paul tell David, and let's just say for the benefit of the doubt that I've at least heard of David, that I don't know how well I might know him. Doesn't look like people around here really know him much as heard of him, right? Remember, he's the youngest son, and he hasn't seen much. But he is the new armor bearer to Saul, and so Saul says, hey, you want to fight him? He's a grown-up warrior. There's a good chance that this man Goliath had been a big lad for a long time. So you have somebody that's big. You know, I can't help but feel a little sorry thinking about a mom. When you hear the stories, you realize this kid probably wasn't one of those nice little 6.5, 7.5 pound baby boys. He's probably one of those 13, 14 pound bowling balls. And I feel sorry for that mom to be. But with that, he was a big boy. So he probably was raised as a warrior because they noticed this from his youth. This is a warrior nation. And it brings up this point. And I think it's a valid. I think it's a real one, and I think I understand it. Might even agree. But that's because I hear him. I'm sitting on the sidelines. I'm listening. So I agree with Saul. But then I hear David share some of his life story that Saul, well, he's unaware of. So David, again, I hear the echoes of Samson, but he has these fights with two beasts of the day, a lion and a bear, and he kills them both. It doesn't give the total details of how he did it. It says that he grabbed the lion by the beard, that big furry mane, I suppose. It doesn't say whether he used the sling or not. Get no real details, just merely that he killed two prodigious animals. That's still worthy of consideration. So we all hear it and go, okay, sounds like a worthy story to me. So Saul says, go, may the Lord be with you. Yet Saul, he still wants to be a responsible leader, so he chooses to arm David. I think what's even more interesting is that he's not giving just anybody's armor. He's giving him his armor. Right? It's not like he's going to say somebody put something on him, send him out. He's willing to give him the king's armor. And there's probably something to be discussed underneath that of bearing the king's armor. Foretelling, who knows. But again, I'll go back to the movies that we have today, right? Pictures that we have today. And again, to be fair, they're mostly focused around the medieval time frame when we picture these kinds of things. But the king's armor stood out. You recognize the king. You may not know his face, but his armor, that'll stand out. It's evident to everybody that he's not wearing standard armor. That armor is special. It's for the king. But as we see, the armor isn't the point here, though, really, right? Saul's just being Saul. He's not out of bounds here. This is not an out of bounds action. This is something that we would do. I'll be fair. I would do. If I sent somebody out and they were going to do this, I would make sure that they were equipped. Whether it was back then or today, they were equipped with the tools to handle the issues that were presented to them, whatever they might be. Saul might be a bit faithless here. Saul is not following God here, but Saul is being practical here. I'll go back again. He's not faithless. He's just maybe not exhibiting as much as might be expected. As the leader that God had asked of him, but then to be fair, we need to remember, because we might be hard on Saul here, that we might want to say that Saul is not being who we think he should be. But we need to remember that God also took his spirit from him. It's not with him at this time. God's spirit is with David. It's not with Saul. So Saul is not getting God's prompting. Perhaps that food's food for thought, right? He's not feeling confident in God's support here. But to be fair, it's because God's support isn't there. He just knows he needs to do something. Might be more to ponder there. So he gives David his armor. And David says, it's too heavy. It doesn't fit me. I don't want it. Just let me do what I do when I'm out in the field. Yeah. Verse 40. So he took his stick in his hand, chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook, put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had, even his pouch, and his sling in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. So David picks up his walking stick. It's interesting to think about. We have a descendant of his 1,000 years later who's going to say, pick up your walking stick. Yeah, I know, that's me. Echoes that I hear. Knowing a story in the future. And then looking back. Sometimes just makes me think. So, we're in the valley between 2 mountains. The brook running through the valley is a nice place to gather river stones, right? Smooth, just the right size. David's preparing to do what David's always done. Protect the sheep. Yeah? And next week, we're going to see how that worked out. So thanks for being with us tonight. Another episode of Outside the Class with Samuel, the First Scroll, as we're going to get into the real meat of the meeting with David and Goliath on the Dusty Feet.